Hey guys, how we doing? It's Jasvinder, and our topic for today is something that I think relates to a lot of people, which is just to cut straight into it, imposter syndrome. So my outcome for this talk is that we're going to just lay out a basic understanding of what this is all about and where it comes from, why it is fundamentally wrong thinking to have imposter syndrome, and most importantly, how to get rid of it. So there are three steps that I have for you to banish imposter syndrome from your life. And you can frame this in a number of ways. When I say three ways to do this and five ways to do that and 10 things that you should do, well, when you get into this stuff, you realize that there's almost an infinite amount of ways that you can go about it. And I think it's useful to have a simplified, coherent starting point with the understanding that you will adapt this to yourself, right? That this is not revealed truth. This is one person's opinion, and this is sort of my aggregate of what I have encountered over the years. Imposter syndrome is a terrible plague in people's lives. I've known so many amazing, talented, just sensitive, kind, hardworking, ethical, forward-thinking, just amazing people who really should be going as far as they can possibly get in this world, because the world's a better place because we have them in it. And you know the kind of people I'm talking about, the kind of people that you just want more people like that in greater positions of influence, because that's the rising tide that lifts all ships. Who are the influencers in our culture? We want people like that. And so many of them are held back by what we call these self-limiting beliefs. Self-limiting beliefs, and imposter syndrome is one of the worst. It's one of the really heinous attitudes. And essentially, imposter syndrome is this picture of yourself as a stowaway on a ship, that you are not a paying passenger and you are not a hired crew member. You are a rapscallion. you know and you have no business being there, and you are disguising yourself, or you're hiding, and you're there under false pretenses, and you will eventually be found out and then cast out because you either lied to get in, or you pretended to be somebody you were not, or you snuck in, and that can only end badly. There are a number of reasons why that is almost never the case. And if you're the kind of person who is listening to this and sort of going towards self-development and bettering yourself, I can tell you most of you guys are way too hard on yourselves. Just assume that this is not you, that you are not actually this stowaway, manipulator, mask-wearing Machiavellian type. That if you are anywhere at all, that you are there for a reason. You are not there just to be exposed and humiliated. That is nobody's higher purpose. It is definitely not yours. It's definitely not mine. Imposter syndrome is the idea that you have in life, in real life, because we are not just doing this pirate castaway thing. I keep saying castaway, stowaway thing. It's when you're in either a job or an opportunity, like a business, or you're in some kind of role of responsibility, or you're in a relationship, either romantically or even having a family, where you feel like you are not the person who is cut out for this, that you have been extended the opportunity erroneously. Now, I'm going to break this down in a minute, but as I mentioned, there are three steps to eliminate this. The first two are mostly your mental posture towards it, your mindset. They're psychological factors. They're at the level of what you believe. And the last one, is really what you can implement, what you can take action on. And these are simple. These are simple things. These are things that are hidden much too effectively, hidden in plain sight. Now, the method here of laying out these conceptual frameworks and then giving you actionable steps is that the behaviors that you act on, the behaviors that you behave on, just to be really circular, are flowing effortlessly from your beliefs. Any behavior that you can maintain over time is aligned with what you believe. Trying to act on beliefs that you do not believe is a bit like pushing a fire truck uphill with the park brake set. Not so easy. And you will always cave in. No matter how well it starts out, you will always cave in because you're fighting against what you actually believe. The way to do it, and this is how I'm doing my best to set you up for victory here, is you lay out some ideas. You lay out some ideas that would be nice to believe. I don't mean like rose-colored lenses, but I mean like you would live a happier, more productive, more fulfilled, more inspiring, and pleasantly surprising and growth-driven kind of life if you were able to act on these beliefs. So I hand you these elevated beliefs on a platter. You're welcome. And then I'm going to hand you some very simple ways to implement them, because there's this continuum of beliefs, actions, and results. And whatever result you get from your actions will only reinforce the belief that produced the action, that produced the result. So if you're trying to get new beliefs into your spectrum of habituated behavior, things that you can do on a degree of autopilot, you want to raise your autopilot, you want to raise your default level, you want to raise your normal. And for that, these have to be things that you believe them. So I'm going to give you some simple things to prove these new beliefs to be correct. And to do that, you need things that are extremely simple, extremely implementable, and things that can be implemented quickly. There's no point in me giving you a 5-year plan here. I need to give you something that's bite-sized so you can test the waters, because these are actions that reflect these new beliefs. And then what happens is you witness the positive results of doing things in a new way and acting on more elevated and more conscious and more self-aware and more expansive ideas. And then the positive results and the success of having acted on those beliefs will prove to your subconscious that these beliefs hold water, right? So I lay that out. Some of you guys already understand that framework, some of you don't. And I think this is never a bad thing to be reminded of, to consciously understand the mechanism of reprogramming ourselves. Because we've all got areas where we're looking for a breakthrough. And it's always constructive and productive to be reminded of how we go about doing that and how simple it can be if the conceptual framework is sound. So, without further ado, number one mentality issue to change for you is that people are not idiots. This idea that you were able to gain access to something under false pretenses, somebody had to offer that opportunity to you. Somebody had to hire you. Somebody had to marry you. Somebody had to date you. Somebody had to fund your company. Somebody had to, want to work with you or for you. You name it, right? It takes two to tango, as they say. So wherever you are, you're only there because you got some kind of either invitation or validation from someone else. Otherwise, you literally wouldn't be there, right? I can't be in a relationship with someone who doesn't want to have a relationship with me. How does that work? I can't just decide that I'm dating Jessica Alba, right? I mean, I can say that all day long. It doesn't mean that it's true, right? So, and I'm just going to pivot away from that immediately. So if I'm with somebody, or I'm going to say it like this: if you are with somebody, they're not idiots. Your employer, your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, or wife is not an idiot. Period. Okay? So and the sub point to that is it's highly unlikely that you outsmarted them. If they extended that opportunity to you, what it means is that you check out all right. That you are qualified or you are a match for them, right? That it makes sense because you can't predict long-term compatibility. You can't, only time will reveal that. But what you can say is that I have every right to believe that I have a right to be here because this person knows what they're looking for, and the chance to be here, either in this role or in this relationship, has been extended to me based on the discernment of that person. Not to believe that you outsmarted them. They know what they're looking for. They have done this before. And nobody walks in the door perfect. They know enough about what they want that you're the person to be that in their life in one way or another. Again, we're talking about all these things simultaneously. There's no need to talk about career or business or relationships separately. It's the same thing, right? You didn't outsmart them. You didn't hoodwink them. What you're actually saying when you believe that you're an imposter, when you have imposter syndrome, what you're saying is that the people who have extended these opportunities to you that you don't really deserve couldn't possibly be that discerning. They couldn't really be that smart because you outsmarted them. You tricked them. Well, if you look at it that way, you don't want to believe that, do you? And you don't really believe that. So until you look at that in sort of the sober light of day, you can continue to harbor this idea, oh, I don't belong here. Well, that means that you're saying that people who offered you the chance to be there are naive or imperceptive or inexperienced. Highly unlikely. These are professionals. Or, in the relationship sense, these are grown-ups. And they know what they're looking for. And it's actually, let's say they don't, that's their fault, not yours. It doesn't mean that you can't trick someone into if they don't know what they want to begin with. It's highly unlikely you outsmarted them. And the other part of that is when something is offered, fundamentally, it's the giver who decides that person is worthy. It's not the receiver. It's not my call to make if they should think that I'm the right person or not. That's their decision. So you see that actually imposter syndrome is really not just disrespecting yourself, it's actually insulting the intelligence and the personal agency of whoever has opened that door to you. You're saying, I know better than you that whether I'm right for this or not. So imposter syndrome voids their power to decide who they want to have in that role or in that relationship, and it says that they're not very intelligent. Imposter syndrome is actually deeply unflattering towards the other person. And if you look at it that way, it starts to dissolve almost immediately. Because then you realize, okay, now that's just one part of it. We keep going with this, right? But I think when you see how incoherent it is to walk around with this attitude, that like you've just sort of made it past the guard dogs, you realize it's demeaning everybody, not just you, right? So step 2 is that imperfect does not equal imposter. That people understand that you're learning, that you're new. And once again, this is not anybody's first rodeo by now. Let's say the job you were hired at, they understand that you are not going to step in at the same level that the last person who was there left at. They look at you the way the last person who was in that position was when they started. Because you don't compare a brand new person to someone who has moved on. You compare new to new, apples to apples. And if they don't, that's their fault. It's not on you, which is important to understand and to own that for yourself. Because think about it. I mean, just think about anything. I mean, if you've been in a situation where you've been at a job for a long time and a new person comes in, they could be amazing, and they've still got to learn the lay of the land. They've got to learn the workflow, the operations, the chain of command. They've got to learn the communication style of everyone that they're supposed to be working with. in a job, there's often backlog from the last person who left that you have to clean up and get caught up on before you can be up to speed. If you ever get 100% up to speed, and being 100% up to speed, I'll tell you right now, is a made up idea. That's something that's major. Being 100% caught up is a made up thing. Have you ever been caught up in any area of your life? I would probably say no. I mean, there are certain things that are kind of cut and dry, sure. I mean, I would say being caught up on rent is a good idea, okay? Bills, it's a good idea to be caught up. But who's caught up on their email? Who, right? There's tons of work stuff where there's just so much going on. And there was plenty there that you walked into on day one. People don't expect you to just sort of come in there as this marble statue and just be perfect. There's such a thing as good enough. And trust that if you're there to begin with, you were invited to be there, you are qualified enough to get in and get the ball rolling. They don't expect you to already be the person that you will grow into over time. You're good enough to start. As they say, you don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start to be great. Okay? So people do understand that you are learning. And when you are in a relationship with someone, when you're dating somebody, it's the same thing, that there are going to be hiccups. There's going to be that first argument. There are going to be misunderstandings. There are going to be, problems with communication because you're learning the person. You're learning what they hear when you say what you say. And you start to learn how to speak to how they hear you, and vice versa. And you learn the ups and downs and the good parts and the not so good parts of that person. And there's so much that you can't know early on. And people have to make decisions about whether they're going to continue with somebody or not based on limited information. Because if you have to be if you have to be with somebody or have an employee there for a year before you know if you want to have them at all, then that's just not going to, then you've already had them for a year. You already have them, right? It doesn't make any sense. And there's also the fail forward ethos. There's the idea that I've returned to over and over again, actually, that you can only learn and you can only grow and progress and improve through mistakes. That mistakes are the currency for growth. Or as Buddha said, pain is the currency of transformation. Spend it wisely. Because I was just talking to somebody about this the other day, and fail forward doesn't sound like a good motto for a brain surgeon. Fail forward doesn't sound like a good model for someone on the bomb squad. You see what I'm saying? So there are certain kinds of mistakes that are okay and certain kinds that are not. Trust that if you're there to begin with, that you're at a level where you are not fundamentally prone to deal breaker level mistakes. That if you're qualified, that we're not talking about a bomb squad guy having a bad day. We're talking about, like, let's say, paperwork stuff, making some notes, the shit blew up, and they're like, we're looking for something a lot more detailed than that, please. That's the mistake, not the mistake like there's 500 people dead, right? That's a bad day for a bomb squad. So it's kind of morbid, whatever. So fail forward, but recognize that doesn't mean, fail forward does not mean it's okay to fuck up any which way you want. No one's saying that. But there's a learning curve, and it's fine. And it doesn't mean that you're an imposter. Imperfect does not equal imposter. Last point. Well, let's just quickly summarize before I get to the actionable steps. Imposter syndrome is a fallacy for two simple reasons. It assumes the person who extended the opportunity is an idiot, and it also presumes the belief that if you're imperfect, you must be an imposter. Those are both transparently untrue. It's abundantly obvious that that's just a bunch of nonsense. And I hope we're clear on that. So here's how you do things in a different way to clean that up in your life, which is the third step, which is to seek more clarity about what is expected of you. Seek more clarity regarding expectations. Because the whole basis of imposter syndrome is that you believe that you are incapable of fulfilling the expectations that are being held of you, right? That you cannot do what you're asked to do. What's the easiest way to clear that up? You arrange a meeting or an appointment, or you ask to have a conversation, if it's girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, or wife, and you want to ask them. So with the relationship example, you don't want to say, what are my 3 to 5 most high priority tasks? That's fucking weird. You know? It's like, I didn't know I was dating like a sophisticated microwave here, okay? But in a relationship, what I would say, I'm not going to say what you want to say is, the way I would want to handle it is, can we talk about what a committed relationship means to you in this phase of your life? What are you looking for? What does this need to do for you, for this to work, for this to be part of you going where you want to go in your life, the kind of life you want to be living? What does it mean? And if you do it in the right way at the right time, and that was just kind of honestly shot from the hip for me right now, but if you do it in the right way at the right time, with the right kind of tonality and sentiment, it doesn't seem awkward. It doesn't seem confrontational. It seems considerate, and it seems like, you're giving the person space to say what can be hard to just come out and say. It's hard. What is awkward is to say, can I tell you what I expect from you? That's weird. I don't think many people will do that. It's really big of you to say, I would really like to understand, what a fulfilled relationship looks like in your mind right now. What is this? What do you want this to do for you? What do you want this to be? Because you want those things to line up. And some of these things are not just obvious. These things are not the kind of things that you can just infer from reading someone's OkCupid profile or how they act, over a night of cocktails. This is deep stuff. And you honor yourself and you honor the integrity of the whole scenario by having that conversation. Professionally, you want to sit down with your manager, your supervisor, or whoever, and you do want to ask them, hey, what are your 3 to 5 highest priority tasks that you have for me? And they'll tell you, and they will be really appreciative that you asked. Because the whole point of thinking that you can't deliver on something is just this lives in the shadows of vagueness. So when you ask specific questions to get specific information, well, if they tell you exactly what they expect from you, and then you realize that and then you ask them, well, how is my performance in those areas so far? And they'll tell you. So it takes it out of the shadows. You know exactly how you're doing and what you need to do to get better, and you will know if you're doing those things or not doing them. And then you're back to learning and growing and being on the same page. And what have you done? You've kind of affirmed this kind of sense of that you belong there, right? And again, the expectations are really hard for you to go back to this idea that you are there under false pretenses, that you are there because even though you can't do what's being asked of you. And similarly in the relationship, it's this idea that, well, once you've had that conversation and things still check out okay, I think you can just roll with it at that point. Now, professionally, there's one more thing, which is peer-to-peer mentorship. That you have relationships with people who are in similar or very closely related fields, and you can get to have shop talk. Shop talk is super important with any kind of new job, is to be able to hash out these details, get technical, get jargony with people who are doing very similar things to you, because you will start to absorb the fruits of their tenure in their areas, right? And you'll just feel like you know the lingo, you know the lay of the land, you kind of are hearing things that are coming from their experience. It's peer-to-peer mentorship and shop talk. And that, again, helps you to identify as someone who can do things like that. So again, you have no right to believe that you're an imposter, because that means the person who let you in is a moron. And it also means that they expect you to be perfect, because every time you make a mistake, you're going to wonder if that proves that you're a fraud. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Babe Ruth held the world record for home runs and strikeouts simultaneously. So striking out a lot clearly doesn't mean that you're a fake Major League Baseball player. Okay? Like, end of story. And if you sit down with the other person and get clear on expectations, and if everyone still feels good about it after that's been discussed, then I think you can put this behind you. Because imposter syndrome is what will keep you as a butterfly. I just botched it. It'll keep you as a caterpillar. It'll never let you be a butterfly, but everything in you just wants to grow and evolve and just flower into this higher stage of evolution. And if a caterpillar thinks that it's an imposter once it becomes a butterfly, it's just missing the basic nature of its existence, which is to level up and to level up and to level up. I'm not an 8-year-old pretending to be a grown man with a beard. Like, I'm a grown man with a beard. You know what I mean? I'm not like a kid who is pretending to be a grown-up. Neither are you. So we went a little long for usual, but guys, thank you for your time. My name is Jasvinder, and feel free to share the video if you dug it. There's just going to be more of the same coming out all the time. So if you watch this on my YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube. Please, check that little bell for getting notifications, right? If you saw a clip of this on my Instagram, follow the Instagram, turn on notifications for Instagram. We put out a lot of stuff like this regularly. And in case you don't know, I do personal self-development coaching. I do a little bit of freelance internet marketing type work, type. And, things like that. A lot of networking, a lot of making things happen. And there's room for more awesome sauce in my fridge. So stop by with some awesome sauce. Thanks for your time, guys. And we'll talk again soon.